things we're doing.
The Planning and Zoning Board meeting of November 8th, 2021. Sherry, would you take roll call?
Sure. Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
I am here.
Mr. Horian?
Here.
Ms. Tornatore?
Yes, here.
Mr. Delage?
Here.
Okay, next order of business would be not on your agenda, but it is to have the oath of office for our newest member, alternate member.
Hello, good morning. I'm just going to ask you to repeat after me, and then the clerk will notarize this, and you'll be official. So please raise your right hand. I, Jenny Groot Begnod,
I, Jenny Groot Begno,
do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
and the government of the United States
and the government of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and that I will in all respects
and that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the City of Daytona Beach Shores,
observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the City of Daytona Beach Shores,
and will faithfully discharge the duties as a board member
and will faithfully discharge the duties as a board member
for the City of Daytona Beach Shores,
for the City of Daytona Beach Shores,
on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
Thank you, congratulations.
Congratulations, Jenny. Nice to have you on our board.
Thank you.
Next item is the minutes of October 12th. Has anybody read them, and anybody want to make a motion?
I'll have a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Sherry?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, there are no quasi judicial items for this meeting. So the next meeting, or the next item is action item, ordinance 2021-15. Should we have that read into the record, John?
We don't have to, but if
Don't have
you'd
to,
like
okay.
me to, I can. I think that's probably the way we've been doing it, so, yeah, I have to look this real quick. And this is ordinance number 2021-15. An ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the City of Daytona Beach Shores comprehensive plan, amending Chapter 1, Future Land Use Elements, by amending map L4 entitled Generalized Future Land Use Map 2030. Assigning the residential low-intensity future land use designation to annex single-family residential property generally located at 104 Broad Avenue. Short tax parcel ID 5335-0305-0240. Providing for implementing actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for non-complication, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Stuart?
Mr. Chair, everyone, Mr. Chair, board members. So as the chair and the city attorney just read, this is ordinance 2021-15, which is a comprehensive plan future land use map amendment for a property that was recently annexed into Daytona Beach Shores, located at 104 Broad Avenue. So as you remember, board members, whenever a property is annexed into Daytona Beach Shores, state statute requires that we not only change the future land use map designation for that property, but also the zoning classification for that property. If that doesn't happen, then the county's future land use map designation and their zoning regulations still apply. And in other words, if there was a code enforcement issue or if there was a building permit being pulled, it would create a lot of huge mess. And this is the reason why we go through this process whenever a property is annexed into the shores. And this property was annexed into the shores formally at the last council meeting on October 26th of this year. So just a quick background on this property. It's located at 104, as I mentioned. The owner is Heather Roberts. The property is about 0.23 of an acre. And right now, the current future land use designation is urban low intensity, which is basically the same or the equivalent of what we're proposing today, which is a residential low intensity, meaning that the current entitlement under the county's future land use is to just have one single family residence there. And under the proposed Daytona Beach Shores low intensity future land use classification, that will remain the same, meaning that only a residential single family residence would be able to be there. I didn't put up a chart in terms of the summary analysis, but as you can see in your staff report, because it's like for like, there's no increase in intensity or density or anything like that. There's basically no change in terms of the impacts. So this is a location map of the property. As you can see, it's on Broad Avenue, and for those of you who are not familiar with Broad Avenue, it spans from South Atlantic Avenue to South Peninsula Drive, and it's right on that same road where ABC store is located at the corner on the south side. And so this is an aerial view of the property. You can see South Peninsula is just a couple lots away, and you can see it's a single-family residence. So basically, this is the way our future land use map looks right now. The property has annexed into the shores, into the city, and this is the location right here, but there's no color assigned. All the properties with colors assigned are properties within the city limits of Daytona Beach Shores, and they have gotten their future land use classification assigned. Everything that doesn't have a color, basically white or uncolored, is Volusia County urban low intensity. So that's basically the designation currently for this property. And if this ordinance is adopted by the city, this is more or less what will happen. The residential low-intensity future land use map classification will be assigned to this map, and essentially that entitlement would be allotted to this particular property. So staff is recommending approval of this. It's a fairly formality in terms of properties that are annexed into the shores. If there's any questions for me, I'll be happy to take those.
Does anyone have any questions on the board? Stuart? Thank you, Stuart. Any discussion on this ordinance or what's happening with it? Anyone want to make a motion?
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2021-15 as presented.
Second.
Sherry, would you take roll on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Horian?
Yes.
Ms. Tornatori?
Yes.
Mr. Delage?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes. Next item up is ordinance 2021-16. John?
Stuart, did this, or maybe Sarah would be better answer, did this ordinance not make it in the packet? 2021-16?
You don't see it in the packet?
Not what? What did?
It's there.
Is it?
Do you-
Can you tell me what page? Because
What happened?
We've got 15 and 17 also.
Oh. All right.
It usually comes after the, after the
There's your memo. Okay. It seems it was not uploaded in the packet. He just can't read it. Can't read the title.
So apparently it was not uploaded into the packet. I apologize, board members, for that. But we can still move forward with the process, right?
yes, we can. The requirement to read it into the record by title title is only for the city council. We do it at this board.
It's the memo, the ordinances.
For the board's information, but there's no reason you can't control the tab item. I just don't have it in front of me to be able to read it by a short time.
It's in my packet. I don't understand what.
So what I will do is I will continue as we typically do. This is ordinance 2021-16, which is a comprehensive plan future land use map amendment for an annexed property located at 131 Glen Myra Avenue.
Page 26, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the actual ordinance.
Okay,
That
the ordinance.
apparently was not
I
uploaded
got
up
you.
there. So again, real quickly, this property was actually annexed. The difference with this one is this one was annexed into Daytona Beach Shores in 2004. And so, as I just stated, whenever a property annexes into the city limits, typically the future land use designation and the rezoning designation has to be assigned to those properties in order for the city to exert its land use, planning, code enforcement, building authority over that particular property. So in this case, what happened in 2004 was the property annexed into Daytona Beach Shores. There was a rezoning that actually happened. The rezoning, unfortunately, does not become effective until a future land use map designation has been assigned, and that did not occur in 2004. So that's the reason why we're here today, to basically complete that process. So the property, as I mentioned earlier, is located at 131 Glenmyra Avenue. The owners are Dr. Doug Dennison and his wife Tracy Dennison. The property is 0.17 of an acre, and the future land use for that property right now is urban low intensity, which is Volusia County urban low intensity, and the proposed future land use is Daytona Beach Shores tourist-oriented commercial, and I'll tell you why we're going there in just a second. The current entitlement is for one single-family use, and the proposed entitlement would be for commercial use. So when you look at the impact analysis that you saw in your staff report, board members, you'll notice that there has been an increase because obviously having a commercial property versus a single-family property increases the intensity in terms of demand generated by vehicles, by sanitary sewer, by potable water, all those different types of public facilities. Staff did an analysis, as you'll see in your staff report, and capacity exists for all of those, to accommodate all of those increases. The increases that you see as a result of this change in land use from residential to commercial is what we call de minimis, meaning it's very negligible. So this is the location of the property on Glenmyra. Glenmyra, just like Broad, as I mentioned earlier, actually, it's a little bit different. It goes from South Atlantic Avenue to La Paloma. And what you see here, the rectangle that you see here on the previous map is the subject property, and the two vacant property that you see with overgrown bush that the cursor is over are the additional properties owned by Dr. Dennison. And those property already have a future land use and a zoning classification for tourist-oriented commercial. Tourist-oriented commercial basically allows your standard commercial uses here in Daytona Beach Shores. And because these properties are contiguous to each other under the same ownership, the only logical designation would be to have those combined and develop into a commercial property. So this is a street view of the property. You can see it's vacant, and just to the right of it are the other properties owned by Dr. Dennison. So this right here is the property, the vacant property that's subject to the future land use amendment. And as you can see to the west, to the east of it, the same future land use designation is there, tourist-oriented commercial. If this is adopted by the city, this is essentially the change in the map that you'd see right there. Planning staff is recommending approval. If there's any questions for me, I'll be happy to take those. As I mentioned, the increase or the change from residential to, which was in the county, to Daytona Beach Shores tourist-oriented commercial, staff believes it's de minimis. There is adequate capacity for all those additional impacts that would be generated. And staff is recommending approval. If there are any questions for me, I'll be happy to take those. And I know there are some representatives here representing the doctor and his wife.
They do abut. There's no.
Yes.
Because on my thing, there's a little white line between them. So.
Yeah, so that's just a print in error, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So this is what it actually looks like.
Scott.
Okay, no problem.
Is there a plan to build something there in the works?
I don't believe there's any plan at this time, but this is just something that kind of fell through the cracks, if you want to call it that, and the city and the property owners realized this was the case, and so this is just a natural formality that we would have to undergo.
Thank you, Stuart.
It would be nice if they'd cut back some of that foliage, because you try to get out of Glenmyra onto Atlantic Avenue, you got lots of problems looking at northbound.
I can definitely mention that and to the owner, and of course, their representatives are here as well to hear that.
Somebody's going to get killed. Thanks, Scott.
Any other comments from the board? Stuart?
I just have a question. You said this happened, what, 2004?
Yes, sir.
And we're coming to it now?
Yes.
What's bringing it to the forefront now?
Well, there was an inquiry as to what the zoning designation was and the future land use map designation was, and so staff, we go through the process. Property owners sometimes, ask about that, other people ask about that. And so when I went through the process, I realized that the future land use designation was not assigned to the property at the time, only the rezoning. But the rezoning does not become effective until a future land use map designation is assigned.
Thank you.
Formality.
17 years. Big crack. Any other comments for Stuart? Any discussion between board members?
I got none.
Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment as it's written.
Second.
Sherry? Take roll.
Ms. Tortori?
Yes.
Mr. Horian?
Yes.
Mr. Deloche?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes. Next item is ordinance 2021-17.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is ordinance 2021-17, an ordinance of the city of Daytona Beach, Florida, Duluth County, Florida, assigning the RSF2 urban single-family residential detached district zoning classification to annex single-family residential property generally located at 104 Broad Avenue. Short tax, parcel ID 5335-0305-0240, providing modification of the official zoning map, providing for implementing and administrative actions, providing for non-codification, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, John. Stuart, you are up again.
So the subject property for this rezoning ordinance 2021-17 is the recently annexed property at 104 Broad. And I'm not going to go over everything in terms of the background of the property, just to note that the zoning that is being proposed, which is RSF-2, which is an urban single-family residential detached district for Daytona Beach Shores, is the equivalent of the R9 urban single-family residential district in Volusia County. And so basically it's a like-for-like change. So this is what the map looks like right now. The zoning map, the first map that you saw was the future land use map. And here in Florida, because we love maps, this is the second process we have to go through. As you can see, there's nothing assigned to it. Everything in color is Daytona Beach Shores. And whenever the map is amended, this is basically what it's going to look like, the RSF-2. Again, just like with the future land use change, in terms of the impact summary analysis, there was no change whatsoever because it was like for like. And with that said, staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Stuart.
Board have any comments for Stuart?
No.
Any discussion between the board members? Okay, in the case of motion,
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2021-17 as presented.
I'll second that.
Sherry?
Mr. Horian?
Yes.
Mr. Deloche?
Yes.
Mr. Tortori?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes. And that's it for the agenda items. Does the board have any comments they want to make before we adjourn?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
You feel we won't be back before that, huh?
No, please.
Any further comments or?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Why would somebody want to annex into the shores?
Oh, there's lots of reasons. There's lots of reasons. One of the primary reasons right now is because our taxes are actually lower than the county.
Okay.
The second reason is our emergency response team. I mean, they're triple trained. Our cops or police officers. They're EMT, police enforcement, and also fire. So when a fireman basically shows up to your, to your building or to your unit or your house, they're basically a law enforcement, and they're also EMT. And then, of course, being in Daytona Beach Shores, you have really good access to your elected officials. You don't have to go all the way to Volusia County or somewhere else to not only meet your elected officials, but also your building department, your planner, your board, things of that nature. And of course, our motto is life is better here. So why not annexing to the shores?
Exactly.
I just think people like to know that once in a while. Repeat it.
Thank you.
We temporarily lived out of the city gym, and we were trying to annex in and couldn't. But,
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
No
for
circumstance.
very reasons, the taxes were lower. You'd ask for police or fire to show up, and it just seemed like a zoo. Nobody knew where we lived, who we belonged to, so it was much better if we'd have been in the city. Any other comments?
I've been wondering about that with you.
In that case, we're adjourned.